All right, we are back. We are live. Welcome to Leadership 2.0. I'm Joseph MoJOE McCarthy, and as always, thrilled to have my dear friends, who are brilliant, by the way, here to share their insights, their perspectives, their education, and their heart for creating organizations and leaders within organizations that lead with empathy and compassion, because actually it increases the bottom line. We've talked about this at length already, and we will get into some of that as well. Today is a bit of a continuation, and before we get into what we talked about last week, I just want to give each of you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself as if someone's tuning in that have never met you before. Just introduce yourself to the audience that is catching you for the first time. I'll start with Angelina, please.
Hi, I'm Angelina Frost. I am an executive coach, and I support executives and leaders in stepping up their game, their leadership game, their interpersonal game, and I love this work. One of my favorite things about it is really supporting people into coming into more contact, more conscious awareness of purpose and how their purpose is expressing itself through them. And if you would like to take a look at one of my books, you can see my little link there, angelinafrost.com/gift. And there is a book there called Connection with some very practical tools that you can use immediately today to increase your ability to connect with the people that you are leading and that you are serving.
Beautiful. Now, this is episode 4 of Leadership 2.0. Hey, Kristina, glad to have you join us.
Hi.
And what those who haven't caught us before wouldn't know is that we're on the 4 corners of the continent. So, well, actually, that's not true, of 2 continents. Angelina, tell people where you're broadcasting from today.
Oh, I'm coming to you live today from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Sweet. Angelina from Argentina, who was a ballerina at one time. All right. Jon, we're going to go to you next.
I'm still a ballerina.
Okay, very good. He's still a ballerina. I'm not going to ask you to dance on camera unless you volunteer. Okay. Jon, pick it up from here. Please introduce yourself to those who have never met you and let everybody know where you're hailing from today.
Yeah, I'm hailing from the small town of Frankenmuth, Michigan, in my cozy little basement setting. Yeah, the Muth. Jon Weirauch is my name. No one can pronounce it when they see it. Kind of rhymes with eyebrow. That's why I put Jon The Millenial on the screen here, which is really funny. It's only been my identity within you guys. I need to actually probably put that on LinkedIn and make it a little bit more widely known. But to summarize it quickly, I've worked with a couple different consulting firms, do a lot of work in the credit union industry, but other industries as well. Very passionate about leadership and the things that the responsibility we have as leaders to be a positive influence, especially at our places of work, since we just spend so much of our lives there. And that's what drives me, and happy to be here, and very happy to see Kristina logging on.
Right. So I didn't tell people yet, I'm in Southern California. Angelina is in Argentina. Jon's in Michigan. Kristina Holle, welcome. Thank you for adjusting your camera and your hair and your glasses and whatever else is required.
Yes, well,
happy that you're here. Please introduce yourself.
I'm all about the real deal. So as you can see, I'm running a little bit behind,
Okay.
but I'm so happy to be here, and now I'm totally aligned and ready to go. Yeah, a little bit about myself. First, my name is Kristina Holle. I am a business consultant. I'm also an executive coach, but really helping people align with their authentic self, which really shifts in many different parts. You can have your corporate hat, but also it goes really deep into your personal development place of who you are. I'm an author of The Authentic You, Unleash Your Leadership Potential. This is how I started this whole journey. And now it's like shifted into this deeper level of assisting people to transform into a whole different level of potential, which is super exciting to witness. A little bit of my background. I've got 25 years of HR senior leadership experience, multiple organizations, big and small, global responsibilities, as well as union, non-union. So I've got all this fun stuff here to offer, but I'm really shifting into helping leaders and organizations to build cultures that truly connect, and so they can show up on a much deeper level, move away from that transactional feel of within organizations, and really moving to something much deeper where you can have a better sense of belonging and people feeling really connected into your organizations, hence being much more productive and winning all over the place for people. So
Yes.
that's
Wins
a
all
little
around.
bit about me. I just as I ran in late. So thanks, guys.
So for those of you tuning in for the first time and catching these three brilliant people, any one of them could carry the day for this next hour. And really, my biggest challenge is trying to figure out how do we divvy up these brilliant brains into segments for this hour. So I'm the host, Joseph I can't even say it, Joseph MoJOE McCarthy. I'm in Southern California, grew up in Montana, and I studied organizational development at Pepperdine for my graduate program. But I've been in nonprofits, primarily faith-based institutions, my entire career, which is really fascinating to me because I went into Pepperdine and I'm surrounded by executive folks and HR folks and corporate folks. And I seriously was a fish out of water. I'm like, maybe I signed up for the wrong program. And they were all like, no, we need you here because you bring a perspective that none of us have. I'm like, I don't know what you mean, but I'll just go with it. Right? So I'm just trying to figure out, what does organizational development even mean, for that matter? And then I don't have all the HR corporate stuff. So I'm like, how do I apply that in the nonprofit world? And actually one of the teachers, the guests that came in, he said, and he's been doing it forever. His name's Peter Block, for those who might know this name. He's considered the rock star of organizational development. And he's an enigmatic guy. He walks in the room and you're just like, I never met the guy, but I can't wait to hear what he has to say, right? He just emanates wisdom, and just brilliant guy. But he looked at me, he was asking questions. He looked at me during lunch. He says, what do you do? I said, well, I work in a church. He goes, really? And why are you here? I said, well, because I believe that in the church or without the church, everything rises and falls on leadership. And I've observed very good and very poor models, no matter where I've worked. And here's Peter Block's comment to me. He says, Joe, the one thing the church gets right is music. They kept music in the organization. And he said, historically, every organization had a music. They had a theme song. They had a rally cry long before it became corporate America. And he said, as organizations grew and advanced, a lot of them left music behind, but the church didn't. And he said, the church understands more than anybody else that singing a song together corporately has all sorts of benefits. So I only say that specifically today because I just announced to the university where I work that I am the new choir conductor, and we're starting rehearsals on Monday, and we're going to do a Christmas concert. And we haven't had a choir on campus for several years. So I'm like, hey, Peter Block, I'm doing my thing. Right. All right.
That's awesome.
So today I'm going to cover just briefly the first two agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz. Don Miguel Ruiz, if you haven't read his books, I highly recommend them. They're actually two books. One's called The Four Agreements, which was published in 1997. And then a follow-up in 2010 called The Fifth Agreement. And we covered agreements 1 and 2. Number 1 was be impeccable with your word. And number 2 is don't take anything personally. And that was an absolutely awesome conversation. You can go back to Leadership 2.0, number 3, episode 3 to catch that, which was 2 weeks ago. So now we're going to move ahead into number 3 and 4. And if we get through both of these within the next 45 minutes, I'll actually be stunned. But if we don't, that's fine as well. I have no timeline where we have to cover anything or everything. So we'll start with don't make assumptions. Now, like most of you, probably you grew up understanding the word assume. If you break it up, the letters themselves say ass, out of you, and me. And my parents told me that from when I was little. My parents never used profanity, so I was like, "Whoa, that's something." But I think because it was shocking, it stuck to me, right? Which is there's a whole other thing there. But you know, they would say to me very often, "Don't make those assumptions, Joe, because you have no idea what the other person's thinking, what the other person's feeling, and once you assume you do, then you're just going to get yourself in trouble," which I still have done my entire life. So thanks, Mom and Dad. If only I had listened. But Don Miguel Ruiz says, "Don't make assumptions," and the the summary is, find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. So I want to volunteer. Who wants to pick that up and say, is that actually true? With this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. And if so, why? All right, let's go with Angelina, and then we'll go to Kristina. You have to unmute yourself.
There we
Maybe
go.
There you go. Okay.
It kept disappearing. I was like, no, don't disappear. So one of my favorite exercises to do in especially new business partnerships or even in new personal relationship partnerships is, and this is a corporate term, but I also like to use it in non-corporate context, is trading papers. And the assignment is to have the partners sit down, and I ask them to list out for themselves in the context of the partnership all of their assumptions and presuppositions, expectations for themselves, and then all that they have for the other person in the partnership. And then the other one also, both partners do this activity, this exercise. I ask them to take, like a week, because sometimes our assumptions and expectations aren't necessarily always that obvious. But as we're coming into a new relationship, it's really in the forefront of our thinking and in our feeling a lot. And so I'm asking them to turn up their volume on paying attention to the quiet conversation that's kind of going on in the background about how they are expecting themselves or the other one to behave or show up. When they are finished creating their two respective lists, the other thing that we do is we sit down together in a meeting, and then I ask them to trade papers, right? And in a new relationship, especially when business is involved, this is very edgy. This is a very edgy exercise, right? And bringing people along to the place of realizing that this is a way that we can save time and energy and a lot of potential misunderstanding by seeing first of all, where we line up, because there's going to be inevitable lineup. If there's attraction in the first place, there's going to be lineup, but it's also going to reveal all the places where we are not aligned. And it's that revelation that we can now, with that information, this data really is how I kind of like present it, especially in a business context. With this data, now we have the ability to go, oh, okay, I see. Well, are these things negotiable, right? But in the absence of this kind of conversation, we're really literally setting ourselves up for a bunch of drama in the future, right? And this is a thing that we don't really think of. But the key to freeing ourselves from this predisposition to assuming is to just be curious, to just have the willingness to ask questions, right? Of ourselves and of others. So that's it. That's what I got to share right now.
Excellent. Yep. Excellent. It's so good. Before I pass it on to Kristina, I know you're chomping at the bit to share as well. And both of you, all three of you, I learn as much in these sessions as I give, for sure. So I love getting your perspectives, and I just love Angelina saying that's a little edgy. I think here's my take on it, right? And I think edgy is only because it's unusual, right? It's edgy because people don't practice it. But quite honestly, if this were a norm, if this were just part of the process and people knew that this is what to be expected going into it, it wouldn't feel edgy at all, right? It's just about cultivating better relationships. Okay, Kristina, jump in, please.
Yeah, I would follow up with that. Like, I do alignment sessions like with senior executives, and I literally say who's on first, who's on second. Like, people really need to know where they land, what they're responsible for, and what the expectation is, because it takes all the noise away. The noise of, oh, I thought you had this. Like, think about sports. If you think the guy on second base is going to catch the ball at first, then every time he doesn't do it, then you're going to be like disappointed, right? Cool. So that's not alignment in the full structure as to like where you want to go. So there's that one. The other one I want to follow up with is the power of your words and the intention behind those words. So if you are a leader, actually, if you are like this in any point of your life, so you can be a leader as in a senior leader in an organization, or you could be a parent to your kids. The words that you use matter, and they have power behind them. And if you don't follow through with the proper intention behind them, you lose credibility and you lose trust. So that's why you have to be extremely mindful of showing up like I am, I do as I say as I do. You have to be that kind of leader when you show up because people see it. If you are someone that is not dependable and can't follow through, then you're going to actually impact the culture around trust.
Sure.
Because, and I've seen it, this is where I would call out politics, office politics is the biggest waste of time. But it is all around this little game is that you said this, or hey, so-and-so's talking behind your back because of this. Hey, I'm going to build an alliance. I'm going to do a power play. You're wasting time. So if everybody can just line up where they're supposed to be, then you can actually execute and be highly effective. So this is when I read that book a while ago, and I would say I think that's what I get from it is that the power of your words, they mean stuff. I wrote about it in my book. It's kind of like, I know it's going to sound a little woo-woo, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Your words are like spells. So what you put out there, if you are not following through with that, you could be actually bringing in really negative stuff into your space. So I will leave it at that.
Before I pass this on to John, I just want to point out what may be obvious to many of you, and is that these 5 assumptions that we're talking about overlap all the time. They're not 5 separate buckets. There are 5 different ways of looking at one big bucket, but the stuff in the middle gets mixed up a lot. And so Kristina really went back to really number 1, be impeccable with your word and how important that is. But that absolutely is important for number 3, don't make assumptions, because whether you say it or you don't, assumptions are being made. And another way to say what you said about spelling, spelling is spells. What I like to say is words create worlds. So out of our thoughts and our emotions mix together and they're a jumble. But then when we put words to it, we're creating a container for people to put meaning in it. Now, the meaning that I had of the word I said might not be the same meaning that you had of the word I said, because you're interpreting it from your own perspective. But that's why don't making assumptions and ties in so close with being impeccable with my word, because the less impeccable I am with my words, the greater chance for misinterpretation and misunderstanding. And it requires continual conversation, because as I said, what I say and what you hear rarely aligns, especially the first time around. Okay, John, please jump in here.
Yeah. I just love sitting and listening to you all talk. And I love our different perspectives, because my mind actually went a completely different place with this. And so I'm so glad that I think we really covered the corporate side quite well. You guys nailed it. I went right to interpersonal relationships when I think about this, and how much anguish individuals can feel making assumptions about what other people think about them. And like you said, you can't talk about one of these agreements without talking about the others, because that kind of dips into the don't take anything personally that we really unpacked quite well last session as well. But no, I think about this in two different ways. Number one, so many people have things going on in their own lives that we just have no idea about. So it's like, I just think of the simple, most trivial things, like, why didn't that person text me back? Or, I saw them and they kind of like, they smiled, but they went on and talked to somebody else. Like, what are they thinking about me? Or, oh my gosh, I wonder what my, how my parents think about that post I made on Facebook, or whatever the case may be. So many people, I think, really anguish on these assumptions they make about what other people are thinking. And I'm telling you from my experience, in this one agreement, it says, yeah, you can completely transform your life. I would agree. I think each one of these agreements could completely transform your life. But no, I would agree, like, getting out of that mind space where, like, from my experience, 9 times out of 10, those assumptions you're making and those worries you have and the anxiety you have on it, they're thinking about something. They got their own life going on. There is a lot more going on than, you're not the center. We talked about you're the hero of your own movie, right? Well, we're not the hero of everyone's movie. So, like, every time someone's in a bad mood, it's not because of us, right? And I think that was one huge assumption that I think a lot of people could really benefit from getting out of that headspace. Now, another thing where my mind goes with this is about people. Don't assume people know your true intents, and don't assume other people understand where you're coming from. It reminds me of, honestly, my relationship with my wife. A lot of times Well, twofold. One, if she'll say, I'm sorry, I respond a lot of times about what? I mean, we were just in this huge argument, right? And I don't know. Are you sorry that we argued? Are you sorry about something that you did? Are you sorry about something that I did? And at first, it took her a long time to kind of like understand that I wasn't just being like a pretentious jerk. What are you sorry about? Please
Yeah.
tell me. It had nothing to do with that. It's like it was because I don't want to make an assumption, or even when she says thank you, sometimes I don't want to assume exactly what you're talking about. So I always try to like bring it to that next step. And equally so, I think the place I struggle the most with all of this is like, I just kind of, we're in this consulting space. And so it's like, you give a lot of advice and people ask you for advice and you talk to a lot of people one-on-one in group settings and things like that. And I think where I struggle a lot is, assuming people know my intent. Um, I'm not just trying to sit here and be in the spotlight so that people can notice me. Like I have some real intents where I think we can make a difference in this world, but I assume a lot of times people just know that about me, or I assume that people just, know that if I've got an issue with you, I'm going to talk to you about it. And so don't worry otherwise. So anyways, that's where my mind went, was in the interpersonal relationship side of don't make assumptions.
Well, I do want to point out, Christine, hold for a second. I do want to point out, John, a really important observation here is that what happens in our interpersonal relationships is everywhere. So we think there's our family, there's our church, there's a community, there's an organization. Those are all interpersonal relationships, right? But we, somehow we think, well, now I'm at work, so now it's like a machine, and my relationships are either downplayed or they're not important, or I shouldn't be thinking about them, whatever. But quite honestly, no matter what realm you are in your life, this applies to the connections, the relationships that you have, both with yourself, by the way, right? So as John was pointing out, what I was thinking of was, I actually make assumptions about what I'm thinking sometimes. And I have to ask myself the question, what did you really mean by that? What do you think about that? Because are you just saying what you heard, or what you think somebody wants you to hear, or what you think somebody will be happy with you hearing, or what do you really believe? So I actually have to have the same dialogue with myself. What assumptions am I making? And I did want to point out before I go to Kristina that I heard Jay Shetty say that oftentimes we think we're afraid of what other people are going to think of us or what they think about us. The truth is, we're afraid of what we think other people are going to think of us. Mm-hmm. We have no idea what other people are thinking of us. We're not afraid of what they're thinking or what they're feeling. We're afraid of what we think they're thinking or what we think they're feeling. So it really is all happening inside of us anyway. Kristina, jump in, please.
Yeah, I would say this.
Hold that, Angelina. Hold that. Kristina's next.
Yeah, I would just say this. I ran a retreat this weekend. It was kick-ass. And there was so much in there for these female leaders that they had these assumptions, and you have to get to the point where you at least go on the explore. Is it real? Is it not? That's number one. And then two, you can't control sometimes what other people are thinking. So are you operating in the place, right, in your truth, right? And if that's not clear, then you can clarify that. But if you are, then it allows you to kind of shed all that other stuff. And it's really interesting. Like when I was in that retreat space with them, when you start letting go of this kind of stuff, it's transformational because you're not getting stuck in the transactional function of, hey, I'm in the role. You actually start trusting yourself on a much deeper level, and you show up in a way that like my mind is blown about this weekend to see what those women did. But it's everywhere, right? That's one little pocket. But like, it's the constant reminder that move from transactional, go into deeper space, because it's about you going in and knowing that you're in a secure place, that you are showing up with the best intention, and that you're not assuming the worst, right? Usually when we assume the worst, it's about us, right? We think,
always.
Right? Whoa, maybe they think this of me. That's a self-worth thing, right? If you're feeling good about yourself, you know that they're not going to feel that way about you because you're showing up with love and compassion towards other people. So it's like, it's so layered, but it's quite interesting that it goes beyond the textbook version of, hey, you got to do this. It's really a you journey. And then when you start going down and you understand that you're showing up effectively, or like with compassion and love for yourself, it's all going to shift.
Yeah.
the whole other dynamic.
Good.
So
Angelina, before we go to you, John and I met in a class, an online Zoom class. Rick Olson, who's a friend of both of ours, hosted this class for public speakers. He said, here's one place where you do want to make an assumption. When you walk out in front of an audience, you assume everybody loves you, right?
yeah, that's a good one.
Because if you assume anything else, you're already on the defensive.
Yeah,
So
that's a great one.
People have hired you. They've come to the room because they want you to win. Because if you win, they win. So he said, yes, there may be people out there and they have their own agenda, but just from the get-go, you walk out in front of a podium, in front of a microphone, in front of a group, start with the assumption everybody loves you, they want you there, and you'll actually deliver a much better message, and they'll receive it differently as well. So sometimes making assumptions can work to your advantage. Okay, Angelina, you've been holding the thought for a while. Please jump in here.
It was to riff on what you riffed on that John riffed on, which is that
yeah, that's the best.
And Kristina kind of touched on it, but that we have a way of, like, when Kristina actually said, it's got to do with like how you feel about yourself. So if you find yourself fearing the judgment of others, what we're actually doing is we are putting ourselves out of our own self, which is causing us anxiety.
Yes.
And we're putting ourselves into their shoes, looking at ourselves through their eyes, but it's us looking at us with judgment. We're the ones that are looking at ourselves with judgment. And we are projecting it onto them, like as if they're the ones that are looking at us poorly. Now, here's the thing. Maybe they are, right? But the reality of it is that if we on the inside of ourselves are having a loving relationship, like a really respectful, loving relationship with our own self, how they think or feel about us doesn't actually really matter. It doesn't touch us.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that frees us up to show up more ourselves.
Yep.
100%.
So good. I love that. Yeah. So John, hold that thought for a second. So I just want to highlight how important this is, right? Brendan Burchard, I listen to him almost every day now. He's one of my favorites. And he says, you have two things you got to do every day, regardless of whatever else you do: generate enthusiasm and build trust. And if you can generate enthusiasm, build trust in every relationship, that's with yourself, with others, with your nature, right? With God. Enthusiasm, trust, everything else will flow pretty well out of that. And I thought, well, that's kind of simplistic, right? I think that's, you can't take all this blub and put it into two little things. But the more I think about it, if I show up enthusiastically, I'm already in a positive space. If I generate enthusiasm, it's contagious, right? So I'm actually changing the space I'm in. And if I'm cultivating trust, and again, this is trust in me, as you guys have both highlighted so beautifully, trust in me that what I'm saying is from my heart, it's true. Whether or not you receive it, that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to be integrous. If I'm integrous with my words, then however you receive it is out of my control anyway. So if I'm generating enthusiasm and cultivating trust, I think he's onto something there. Okay, John, please jump in here.
Yeah, two quick things. One, a little more applicable, in going off of what you said about Rick Olson saying, assume people like you when you're speaking. I think that is something that is a very applicable in one-on-one relationships as well. I always think about, I always say, think about that one person you have at work that you haven't talked to them in like a month, maybe more. And the last time you interacted, it was a little bit of a rocky situation. The next time you see that person in person or on a Zoom meeting or whatever, you don't want to just be in this world where you're avoiding them and avoiding eye contact because you assume there's some sort of weirdness there. So I think as long as you're being honest with yourself and trustworthy, that there's no things that need to be addressed there, kind of water under the bridge, assume that person likes you, give them a big smile. It's the same when you walk into a party, walk into a gathering, walk into a meeting, assuming everybody likes you just puts off the right kind of display of energy, puts out the right energy to welcome people into liking you. So making any assumptions about what people might feel about you when you walk into those rooms because, oh man, I didn't complete that one project I was supposed to complete, or, oh gosh, last time we talked, it was a little bit rocky, or whatever those things are, just get those out of your mind and just assume that you're there and they all want you to be there and they like you. So that's one applicable piece. Then I want to talk about something that we haven't dug into yet in terms of assumptions, that I think is so important for self-awareness is don't assume we understand our own motivations and our own biases and our own prejudices, and don't assume we know ourselves anywhere near as much as we think we know ourselves, I think is so important, right? Because you can really get yourself into a thought tunnel, and really lead yourself astray. So throwing that out there.
Yeah, it's funny because when I did work with some of my clients this weekend and whatnot, the way that we do that, we access it through painting. So there's different ways and different tools to kind of get people to move away from headspace and tap into intuition in different space. I get them to write differently. I get them to, so they literally will look at stuff and they'll be like, oh my God, I didn't know that I was doing that. And I'm like, isn't it great? I'm like, isn't that great? You're like discovering yourself on a much deeper level, because our minds, we've been programmed for a very long time as to what is acceptable, how we're supposed to show up, what this means. And when we do that, and what is success, right? Especially in corporate environments, right? So there's definitely a clear channel as to how that works. But with doing that, we kind of lose parts of ourselves, like following that path. So we create those little assumptions and all these things along the way. Yeah. I kind of see it as like a basket, and you just kind of keep picking them up as you're kind of going. And you think that you're on this path that is the correct path, but you've lost touch with yourself. Because when you learn the tools to tap in deeper, you'll be quite surprised, as you said, like you don't know yourself as well as you think you do. Right. You're following someone else's path. Yeah. Maybe we need to reframe that a little bit and see where you're supposed to go in this space. So very cool.
So to flip the assumptions thing in a different direction, which may shed some light on it, the way I look at it, two things. One is we have blind spots, and you were just talking about how I don't know myself as well as I think I do. I call this my blind spots. And as Howard Falco, who's a friend of all of ours, has said, he said, imagine this, or just think about this. Our eyes face outward. Our eyes don't face inward. We're looking at the world from the inside out all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't see the back of my own head. I can't see the middle of my back. This is physically, right? There's parts of my body I can't see. So how could I assume that I can see all of me clearly? Mm-hmm. So that's why relationships are so vital to our lives, because those who know us and love us and trust, or know, like, and trust us, right, who want the best for us, can speak the truth in love, to use a Bible phrase. They can tell us about the things that we can't see in ourselves. And it might be because we don't want to see it. It might be because we just haven't been trained to see it, but they can expose the blind spots, which actually is kind of painful at first. It stings. Mm-hmm. And then there's this other verse in the Bible that always just gets me. And it says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. Sometimes it's your friends who tell you the things you don't want to hear or can't see yourself. And it hurts because it's true, right? But if you don't expose your blind spots, it's almost impossible to fix them. Awareness is always step number one. And then the other thing I just want to say on this topic before we move on is that I believe, and I've stated this before, that I think one of the most dangerous 2-word phrases in English language is I know. Mm-hmm. As soon as I make the claim, whether I say it out loud or not, if I make the claim that I know, I have by definition shut myself off to any and every other possibility. How ridiculous is that, right? When I think about it, I don't really know everything about anything. And I work in an institution of higher education, and they say PhDs are people who know more and more about less and less until they know everything about nothing. But that's kind of the way I feel about my life sometimes, right? I think I know, and I think I know, and I think I know, and then I find out I know, but I have like such a tiny percentage of what is to be known. Or as Sadhguru once famously said in an interview with Matthew McConaughey, he says, generally humans get 3 or 4 or 5 pieces to the puzzle, and they get them to fit together, and they see the pattern of a tiger stripe, and they go, I know what the universe is. The universe is a tiger. I've got my 5 pieces here, and they all fit. But what they fail to remember is that there's 8 billion, 10 billion, a zillion pieces to the puzzle. So yeah, my 5 pieces look like a tiger, but that is not the whole picture. So just making sure that you are aware that you have blind spots. You have people who will help you point those out, even though it hurts at first, because you can't fix anything that you're not aware of. And that certainty is a killer, because certainty means that you're not open to somebody else's ideas or opinions. I'm sorry.
I would also say, whenever anyone shows up, I don't know, you guys can be honest, but if they show up, and I've seen it throughout my life, I've arrived. I've arrived. I know everything. We are in a great spot. And I'm like, oh my gosh. In my head, I'm like, this is a red flag.
Right.
Because you never, ever arrive. You should be constantly learning and shifting and pivoting and falling and getting back up and having this amazing adventure of life. But when I see that, that is all ego speak, which we could talk about another day.
That's another question.
Like, it's like, I find it funny because you've automatically, when you say I've arrived, you limited your capability, your capacity of what you could bring into this world.
100%.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
So Joe, I think what I want to do before we go on to the next one, because you tapped on to something that I think is important, that we all do as well. When somebody does give you feedback about yourself and tells you about yourself, it is very hard to not assume bad intent, because when you get feedback, it seems like you're getting picked on, especially if you're doing like a 360-degree review and you're reviewing your results and it feels like a punch in the gut. If we can all, so my favorite thing is everyone has thoughts about us. Everybody has feedback about us. The question is, do you want to hear it or not? And then the real question is, when you hear it, are you assuming that they're like attacking you as an individual? Or can you just assume that they want you, they care enough about you to tell you these things? They care enough about you to want you to be a better person. So again, I know you're not supposed to assume, but in those scenarios, I say just assume the best intent out of individuals and take it as a gift and take that as something you can apply in your life to become a better version of yourself. Don't assume that they're just trying to be mean and rude. And to be honest with you, even if they are being mean and rude, they still might know something about you that you need to know about yourself. And so take it and don't assume that it's something that's going to tear you down. Assume it's something that can build you up.
Really good.
I would add on to that really quick, and to have discernment. So discernment is being very secure with who you are and not allowing a lot of that self-doubt. And trust me, when I've done coaching, you would be blown away how many of those leaders have self-doubt things. On the outside, you don't see it. But on the inside, it's there, right? I've done assessments and stuff like that. It kind of blew me away, actually, but I was very honored that people were sharing with me about this part of it. So it's really important to do the work on yourself so you can avoid those situations where you're making assumptions. So like, and as Angelina said before, sometimes it's not even about that. It's about us, right? But when you are grounded in who you are, you have discernment. You can see things clearly and go, that's mine. That's not yours. I got to work through that one. That is extremely powerful because it eliminates all the extra wasted energy, I would guess. Like, this time waster where you start playing all these scenarios in your head that aren't even real.
Yep. It's something beautiful about that. Sorry, Joe.
No, please.
Sorry, you see what happens?
I told you. I told everybody, don't do it. I love this.
We can spend all week on this.
I know. It gets me excited. Yes.
Please,
but
please go.
The beautiful, there's something so beautiful about this, though. When I was still in my coach's training, one of the powerful things that took me a bit to wrap my head around is my mentor, Brian Franklin, pointed out that a powerful leader has the courage to lead with their weakness.
I like that.
You have to say that again. That's so good.
Yeah, a powerful leader has the courage to lead with their weakness. Now, this is a thing that, like we were talking about, you get that 360 review and you're looking at it and you're like feeling like you just got a punch in the gut, right? But for me at this point in my development, I actually celebrate when I get some kind of information about me that was existing in my blind spot, because my true desire is really to, lead powerfully and to be an invitation for those in my realm to also feel the freedom to be in their own respective leadership, which includes them sometimes telling me about something that I might not necessarily want to hear, right? Yep. And this information is something that if I'm open to it, right, that I can actually grow from. But that leading from your weakness is also making it so that the people that you're leading feel your humanity, right? Because you're not effectively putting yourself into a position above them. You're putting them into a position of like on even ground with them. And this is the welcoming of their own leadership. This is the welcoming and the invitation. It's an energetic thing, right? It's not you
100%.
saying, hey, I want you to all step into your leadership. It's more like, I'm going to show you how I'm going to lead by leading with my weakness so that you can feel safe and free to be in your own humanity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And there was one other piece and I think I lost it. So
Right.
I'm just gonna
Let me add on to that. So good. So a friend of mine was at a conference, all men's conference, and they were learning how to be good husbands, good fathers, trying to encourage each other in, in all the things that they face. And the speaker, who's highly respected, recognized name, he says, how many guys in the room want to be a great husband? Yeah. How many want to be a great father? Yeah. How many want to be a great lover? How many want to be a great co-worker and a boss and leader? And the whole place is cheering. And he says, so get this, guys. Humans connect most profoundly at their points of weakness.
I know.
Not at their points of power. And as a guy, I got to tell you, I was not raised that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't ever show your weakness. You never cry. You just spit on it and rub off the dirt and you move on, right? And that somehow showing weakness was vulnerability, not in the good way, not in the Brene Brown vulnerability, but as in I will get crushed, right? If I show weakness, then they're going to take advantage of it. And unfortunately, I had men in my life who did take advantage of my vulnerability. So all of that works against me. When I find out, hey, guess what? You want really good connections with your wife and with your coworkers and your children and the people that you play golf with and whatever. If that's really important to you, you'll connect most profoundly at your points of weakness. And I'm like, is that really true? Because I don't think I really want to hear that, right? But I got to tell you, when I end up in a story talking about some trauma that I've experienced or something that really breaks me up, or I get teared up on something, right? And I wasn't intending to. Everybody's like drawn in. Ooh, are you okay? Right? Are you all right, Joe? right? Suddenly they care about what I'm saying because they care about me. And of course that can be used manipulatively. People can use that for the wrong reasons. But all that to say, the power is true. The truth is true that we find connections with each other at our points of weakness because we all are fully aware of our weaknesses and we want to not be the only weak person in the room, right? And so when someone stands up with their armor and their power and I've got it all together and I'm the one who knows, it actually repels us rather than attracts us. And here's a Bertrand Russell quote that I just got from my friend Steve this morning. It says, "The trouble with the world is that the stupid people are cocksure and the intelligent people are full of doubt." The trouble with the world is that the stupid people are cocksure and the intelligent people are full of doubt. Bertrand Russell. And I got to tell you, I've experienced that to be true. So what do we do with that, right? What do we do with that? Who's waiting? I know you got all.
So it's that experience, if our experience is leading us to more curiosity, a desire to know more deeply, then the stuff that we know, right, is informing our questions. It's informing our, right? But if we go around just knowing all the time and we don't, and we just like get ourselves to this place and I've arrived, haha, right? That place just sets us up for future falling down the hill, right?
Sets us up for falling down. I love that phrase. Yeah, Kristina.
I'm chomping here because this is what my book's about, right? So the Authentic You Unleash Your Leadership Potential was really about people because we were looking for leaders that were inspirational and motivational. And you cannot get that from a textbook. You have to actually tap into who you are and look at those stories where it's been icky, yuck, you want to hide those stories. But that is where those inspirational points lie. That is what people connect to, where, you're being brave enough to step forward and be vulnerable and kind of work through whatever that is. I'm not asking people to relive those stories. No, but be the observer, be the hero in your story and really see what you have come through. Because when you start doing that, it's real. It's not. So someone said to me when I started this whole process, and I'm like, wow, this is so powerful. I don't know. It spoke to me. They said, hey, Kristina, when corporate Kristina shows up, I come to you as corporate blah blah blah. But when you come as yourself, this open, lively other side of me, like really all heart led, I show up that way. And then what happens is that you breed real connectivity. And I've seen it. It's actually kind of blown my mind. So if you guys would have met me 5 years ago, you would have met a very different Kristina, very structured, corporate. And, you know, I was like, okay to help, but at a distance. It was like a secret thing. Like, oh, okay, you can come to me. I'll help you. But you don't, no, you don't share that out there because I got to be strong. I got to have this armor. What a bunch of nonsense. Okay. So now I really realize this. That's why I want to share it like on every mountaintop out there. Embrace your story, all the little hardships, because that's where the magic lies. And when you wear them like badges of honor instead of hiding them and shaming them, then you show up in a way that no one will ever shake you. Right. So then it's like, then you don't have that self-doubt. Then the assumption thing, people just know. Like, so it's like this. A lion doesn't have to tell anyone that they're a lion. They just show up. They're a lion because they are aligned with who they are, and they show up in a way that is super powerful. But that's because they've embraced themselves. They're not hiding anymore. They're embracing themselves in their totality. And there's such beauty in that, because when you do it as a leader, you've given other people in your crew to do the permission to do the same thing. So I just want to put that out there, because I've seen it now. Because corporate Kristina she's there. It was a big joke this weekend that she pops out every once in a while when things aren't going as I like. They're like, oh, there's corporate Kristina. I go, she comes out, but I know how to manage her now. Right. So she's not running the show. But this is the beauty and the depth of where you can go, like, and show up as a leader in all parts of your life. So I will pause there.
Well, that's a great illustration of emotional intelligence, which is Jon's forte. Jon talks emotional intelligence almost every conversation I've had with him so far, and I love it because I learned a ton about that. But you just talked about managing the corporate Kristina. She does pop up, right? We all does.
We're I like her.
We're multifaceted. We're multifaceted creatures. We can show up as almost anything in any given situation. Emotional intelligence is having the right part of us show up at the right time. So Todd Foreman wrote this book called Alter Ego. And he makes this really great case that we aren't just one thing, right? He's not talking about split personalities. He's saying when I'm in the bedroom, I'm not the same as in the boardroom,
right?
Or in the playroom with my kids. He says that doesn't make me three different people. That means that I need to know which part of Todd shows up at the right time. So I'm not trying to play boardroom with my kids. They don't get that. Or with my wife, she doesn't like that. And I'm not playing lover in the boardroom because they don't want that either, right? So these are all me. It's just understanding, having this awareness and then ability to manage the different parts of me so the right part shows up at the right time. And also, Jon, before I hand it to you, I love what Simon Sinek says. I listen to Simon Sinek all the time. The stuff that comes out of his mouth blows my mind. And he says, I get hired to be a keynote speaker. I'm the highest paid guy in the room. You know, people want to hear what I have to say. He says, but if I don't tell myself that I'm arriving as a student, then I'm going to blow it. He says, every time I've showed up as the teacher, the answer guy, the guru, fell flat. Like what went wrong? He says, but when I show up and I say, okay, I'm the one with the microphone, but I'm a student, right? I'm going to learn as much and more from you as you're going to learn from me. The connection is profound. And he says, everybody wins. All right, Jon, please jump in here.
Well, just to hop on that, I fully agree with that. In fact, I've been changing my approach as of late into my different, even if I'm called to ask to do a keynote, I say, can I do a workshop instead? I don't want to sit here and talk for an hour. In fact, this one guy said, hey, I just need a 30-minute keynote. I don't have a big budget for it, so I'll just do 30 minutes. I said, pay me the same, let me do an hour and let me do a workshop instead. And that was the agreement we came to, because I learned so much from these sessions. And so the approach we take now is to allow people to kind of, give them time to think, give them time to interact with others, then give them time to feedback to the group. So I learned so much from that. What inspired me before what you were saying, Joe, was just that, now that I'm working full-time from home, from my basement, I have an agreement with my wife that I need her to let me know when she's on her way home from work. Because what was happening for a long time is she would show up with the kids and I'd be working right up until that moment. And then all of a sudden I have to flip a switch like that and become dad and husband.
Right.
And I didn't do a good job at it.
Yeah.
I was in such a work mode. I'd be going upstairs like, okay, well, you guys go ahead and change your clothes. I'm going to do some dishes. Nicole, you go ahead and make some food. And I'm like sitting here running it like I'm running my team. And
Corporate Kristina showed up.
Yeah. Corporate Kristina showed up. And yeah.
This is mine.
Sorry. I love it.
Or
But that buffer time. Yeah.
You can even see it.
I'm gonna take that from you. I like that. I need
You
a sign
can
for my
borrow it.
door.
You can market
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
At least they
This is
were
good.
involved.
Because you really do. You need like even just give me 1 quick minute to just assess. Okay, this is the mode I'm in, and this is the mode I need to be in. Take a breath. Be a father. Be a dad. The last thing I wanted to say, Joe, is I think we have done a great job in Don't Make Assumptions, and I truly believe we can do the next one in 10 minutes. But I'll leave that up to you. You're the host.
Well, before we do, I just have to tell a personal story so people can see how I pin this on my own life. Is I pulled in the driveway less than a week ago. I get out of the car and I go immediately to the trash to put some stuff that was in my car in the trash. I'm on the other side of the driveway from our front door with my head underneath the lid of the trash can, putting something in. And my wife comes out of the door onto the porch and says, "Hey, you got to do this, and the kids need that, and the pets, and then the food, and then can you get in the groceries, and the dishes aren't done." And I was like, "What? Wait, I haven't even closed the lid to the trash can yet, right?" I said, "Can I come in, take a breath, maybe go to the bathroom? I'm happy to do all those things. I know that's required of me, but I just couldn't shift that fast, right?" Hey, Daryl Ledger, great to have you here on the show, friend of the show right here. We all love you, Daryl.
Hi, Daryl.
But so here was the important thing in all of that. It wasn't that my wife accosted me before I got out of the car. It's that rather than internalize that and be resentful and then be angry and pissy the rest of the night because I got accosted before I got out of my car, I had to say, "Hey, can we just give me a second? I need to breathe, change clothes, do something to get myself out of workspace before I get into home space." She's like, "Okay, but you got 3 minutes," whatever it is. Just hilarious. But so what's really important here is that Todd Herman, he says what he has to do, and he recommends this to everybody, is he calls them the talismans. He says he has to do something, a physical something that changes his mindset. So he's got this ring that's got Superman on it that one of his boys gave to him. And he says, when I get out of the car, I keep it in the ashtray of my car. When I get out of the car, the driveway after work, and I'm walking into the house, knowing the two boys are right behind the door, ready to tackle me, I put on my Superman ring because now I'm dad, right? And then he says, before I go into the bedroom that night, I take the Superman ring off because my wife doesn't want me to be Superman, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
Now we're going somewhere else. And I just
this is a different kind of podcast, but
can tell you what Todd's saying, not what I'm thinking. Okay. but I don't remember all the talismans he had, but he said he highly recommends, and this came actually out of traditions. Angelina might be aware of this, out of traditions long before we got all modernized, is that they would have talismans. It might be something they wore, a headdress, makeup. So I'm going to war, so I put war paint on because I'm assuming a different persona, and now I'm not scared. It's not because I wasn't scared before, it's because now I'm a warrior. But when I come home, I don't leave the war paint on, right? That's not good for my kids or my family. So he just said, come up with something simple that you hold in your pocket, you have in your hand, you wear on your ring, you wear around your neck, or a watch. He takes a watch off and puts it on a certain time. And that's his signal. Okay, now I've got my war paint on. I can go to war. Now I'm not. And so I just want to throw that out there.
That's
so
awesome.
John's recommending that in our last 7 minutes, we could cover agreement number 4. And actually my hunch is to say no, because I would like each one of you to get a chance to summarize what we've talked about, but even more important, to give somebody one practical step, one simple, sustainable step that they could implement that would push them in this direction, right? Because oftentimes I find myself hearing lots of great information, but I don't know how to implement it, or I don't know what the next step is, and so I do nothing. And Robin Sharma says, ideation without implementation is delusion, and the last thing I want to do is create any delusion here. So, and by the way, just observation, number 2 is don't take anything responsibility, don't take anything personally, and today was don't make assumptions, and those two have crossed over a zillion times in this conversation. So we've talked about that before. But so I would like each of you to come up with one simple, sustainable step that someone could say, that I can do, that I can try. Maybe I won't be successful, but I can try, which will push me towards this ideal of not making assumptions. So who wants to jump in there? I know that's, yes, Angelina, please.
Leverage your superpower of curiosity.
Explain that.
That assuming thing that happens is us being the knower. Moving into that mental state of curiosity is actually assuming that I don't know.
Right. Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
when there is something that, especially if you're like, the thing that you're assuming has got your engine going, right?
Yeah.
Find a way to reel it in so that you can maintain rapport with your team, right? So that they can feel like they can trust you, that they can trust that they are safe to continue to be humans, and so that they can maintain their desire to actually be following you.
Yes. Right.
Right.
So give us an actual question. What's an actual question I can ask myself or I can ask someone else that will help me cut off the assumptions that I'm making? Do you have a question in mind?
Well, you could ask yourself, okay, I've got my engine rolling. I'm getting ready to steamroll this person. Do I really know? Is there any way that I can absolutely know for sure?
Do I really know? Yeah.
Right.
Powerful. Excellent.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're asking them, hey, I'm really curious. It looks like this. Is it this way?
Yeah.
Can you help me understand?
Ooh, so good. Do I really know? And can you help me understand? There's two transformative questions right there. Do I really know? And can you help me understand? So good. Okay. Who's up? Christine, I can see it on your face.
Okay.
Yes.
So first and foremost, come to my retreat because we can totally
Nice.
fix this up in
Shameless
a heartbeat.
plug.
Like
I love it.
honestly, one
Shameless plug.
weekend intensive, you're coming out, it's a different person.
I'm
I
not even a
promise you
woman,
that.
but I'm there, baby.
Lighter and brighter. It's like, I don't know. I'm like in a different space because I witnessed it. I'm like, okay, so there's that. But the first thing I would do is always ask yourself first before you start pointing that finger. So go, is this my thing?
Is this my thing?
Or is this my thing? Or is it really something?
Yes.
And I think it's very important to do that because you might see a pattern. You have to remove yourself a little bit. When we are emotionally charged, we're not as clear as we would like. So it could be when you're driving home that night before you react to something and say like, is this mine? Let me work through it. You know how many times I've had to do that throughout my career? And it works. It works because it avoids the blame game because it's so much easier to blame it on everybody else and have zero accountability.
Yes.
That takes two to tango. So there is a part in there somewhere for you. So you gotta look at it. And if you feel comfortable, no, it's not mine, then you can go and do a further investigation.
Good. So now we have three powerful questions. Do I really know? Help me understand. And is this my thing? Mm-hmm. Wow. Jon, what you got for us?
I think instead of bringing, that's excellent. All those things, instead of bringing another question forth, I'm just going to suggest a practice.
Please.
Of taking a minute and writing down those thoughts. Write down, if anytime you feel any sort of angst about somebody else, either something they said or they did or didn't do or didn't say or anything of the sort, take the time to write out the answers to those questions that Angelina and Kristina just put forth. Take time to write out what are the different reasons why this person might have done that or said that. Right. And that'll be a never ending practice because the list could be forever. What are all the different, there's a million of them. And the reason I suggest that is because I think when you do that, you start to realize that it is silly to make assumptions because you realize there's a infinite amount of possibilities as to why this thing happened. So instead you can then say, okay, what do I have control of in this scenario? What can I personally do? Is it, and again, to Kristina's, is it me? Is there something inside me? And if so, am I going to take it personally or am I going to take some action and do something about it? And so I think and then you list out what are the different things that I can do about it, and you see it and it's physical and it's tangible. It's not in your head. It's on a piece of paper so you can actually tackle it because it's now entered out of your brain and into the material universe, and you can actually tackle that tangible thing. And as you list out all the different things that ways you might be able to address the scenario, you could then start eliminating the ones that maybe don't make a lot of sense, and try to focus on the ones that makes the most sense. And I think if you start with a practice like that, because I did this exact practice, it then becomes second nature to just do it on the fly and not have to take the time to do all that writing and thinking.
I know Angelina has something, and I have something too. Angelina.
Yeah,
One little tiny thing.
Let's do this. We're gonna just a few seconds. So Angelina, Kristina, and then I'll close it out. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So this, and Kristina touched on this, that accountability thing. One difficult thing, I think, for leaders in general is to understand that if your team is not performing, that it is ultimately your responsibility.
Mm-hmm. It's your
Right?
shop. Yeah.
It's your shop. And so it's that means that if they're not performing, it comes down to you and the kind of container that you are providing so that they can successfully perform their jobs. So this is not an easy or fun one to grapple with, but when you're willing to lead with your own weakness, with your own humanity, and stay in curiosity, right? It makes this responsibility, this accountability, a lot more accessible to you. So play around with that.
Okay.
Oh, good. Kristina, jump
And
in.
then to go deeper. So let's say you're in the car and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, this is mine. Like, I'm getting all worked up about this. I want you to take it further. I want you to ask yourself, is this real or is this assumption? Like, is this real or not? Did I just create this story in my head? Trust me, it will blow you away how many beautiful stories we tell ourselves in order to protect our ego and protect ourselves. So take it the next level, okay? If it's yours, then go deeper. Is it true or not? Is this something like, am I really going to go punch people in the face? No, like that's not true. And then it kind of disperses whatever that silly thing that you have going on in your head. Okay, that's it.
Beautiful.
That's it for me today.
We're right at an hour. And as I predicted, or maybe I even manifested, I said, there's no way we're going to cover all this in an hour. And we spent the whole hour on don't make assumptions. However, as we said before, we have dipped back and forth into many of these agreements because they are so intertwined. So I'm going to give my small, simple step, which is, it's simple but not easy. Angelina made this great point. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, which is true of most of life. So I like this. I'm really embracing this idea of what if. And I know that my default, when the what if comes up, my default negativity bias says, what if this is the worst thing? What if people hate me? What if I lose my job? What if I get a divorce? What if my kids, that grow up to be reprobates? What if? The what if, generally by default, because of the way our brains have been evolved, assumes the worst to keep us alive. Actually, it's a self-preservation mechanism. However, as Kristina made this point earlier, managing that what do you call it? This existence brain, this Neanderthal brain, the monkey brain. People call it all these sort of different kind of things, which by nature fills in the what if question with what if everything's going to go wrong, right? So I have to. I'm talking to myself now. I have to tell myself the what if question is not unidirectional. The what if question is omnidirectional. So one possibility is that things could all go to hell. That is one possibility, but it's one of an infinite number of possibilities. And so I have to ask myself, what if this is exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it? What if, even though it sucks and it hurts and I don't want to hear it, that's the only way I'm going to grow, the only way I'm going to get stronger, the only way I'm going to have any self-awareness, the only way I'm going to be emotionally intelligent, the only way I'm going to lead this team, the only way people are going to flourish. What if what I have assumed to be awful is actually awesome? It just comes in different clothing. What if? That's as valid of a possibility as what if everybody hates me, right? It's one of an infinite number of possibilities. So I tell myself all the time, I stand in the mirror and I say, Joe, if you're going to play the what if game, and I know you are, by the way, you can't play it in one direction, play it in all directions.
So let me ask you this.
Yes, please.
Do you think a lion says what if?
Well, I don't want to be a lion because he sleeps 20 hours a day.
Oh God.
That's not me.
I love it. There's a presence and there's a confidence there when you are trusting that if you fall, you're resourceful, you'll figure it out, you'll pick yourself back up. What if starts to disappear? Because what if can be pretty scary when it starts winding out into different directions.
So I do want to make this point, Kristina, so I'm glad you brought that up, is that one thing that sets us humans apart from all of the other creation, every other creature, including lions, is that we have the self-awareness, that we have the ability to choose, right? So Viktor Frankl, in the profound book, Man's Search for Meaning, he says, in this little tiny space between stimulus and response is a choice. We make the choice. How do we respond to the stimulus actually determines the world that we live in, right? So a lion lives instinctually and does a beautiful job doing it because that's the way he's built. We, however, for better or for worse, have been given the ability to respond or react to every stimulus, and we assign meaning to it, right? So that is our superpower that sets us apart from all of the creation, is that between stimulus and response, we can react instinctively like a lion, or we can actually be better, stronger, faster than a lion because we get to choose the meaning that we pour into that stimulus and how we respond to it. So Viktor Frankl, for those that don't know, he's in a concentration camp, the worst inhumanity to man in the history of mankind, and he finds beauty and meaning in the death camps. Why? Because he says, the one thing that nobody can take from me is my choice to respond to my circumstance.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, lions are great. I love them. And I don't want to play with them because I actually did that once and I got attacked. So, but I survived.
Side story. Yeah.
That's another story. But all that to say, we all have this superpower. And if we relinquish our power to assumptions, right, it's going to harm us and others. And ultimately, we don't want to cause harm to us or others. So by taking the responsibility that Angelina was talking about, by my ability to respond, which we've all been given, then I don't have to be reactionary any longer. I can actually be responsible, able to respond. And by the way, that's the kind of leaders I want to follow. That's the kind of leader I want to be, right? All right, last words. Tell people how to connect with you off of this talk. Angelina, how do people find you? How do they connect with you outside of StreamYard?
You can go to my website, send me an email, angelina@angelinafrost.com, or you can just go get a copy of my book. And if you do that, I will send you a little email and we can chat that way. That's, yeah, those two ways.
Okay,
And thank you everybody for being here.
Kristina, please.
I have socials all over the place. If you look at my name, KristinaHolle.com, you can get to my website. My consulting business is holleconsulting.com. Also, like I said, there's many different ways to reach out, different things that I do, wear many different hats, but the retreat space is really awesome. Just saying, I'm just so happy about it. So I'm going to plug away. Also, I would like any sort of corporate female clients out there, people that are interested in doing more of an explore. I do have a Facebook page that I think is extremely powerful, just even to be there to get daily inspiration, kind of little tips and stuff like that. Please come join us there. It is called Successful Authentic Women. Sorry, Mojo, but right now I'm starting with the ladies.
Say it again. Successful Authentic Women.
Yes. Okay. Please come join us at the Facebook group. It's growing quickly. Totally inspired space, and everybody is welcome. So I would love to have you there.
Awesome.
That's it.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for having us, Mojo.
Don't sign off just yet. I'm going to put Jon Weirauch here on the screen. Nobody knows how to spell his last name nor how to say it. It rhymes with eyebrow. Jon Weirauch Consulting. You can reach him there. He's also on all the socials. LinkedIn is probably a great way to find him as well. So we've gone through now 3 of the 5 agreements, and we will pick this up again next Thursday, hopefully at the same time, 12:30 Pacific. And the 2 that we have not covered yet is always do your best and be skeptical and learn to listen, which those 2 are actually required. Come in. The water is fine.
It's time. Come on in. Yeah.
Right. So on behalf of Angelina and Kristina and Jon, I'm Joseph MoJOE McCarthy, and I just want to say thank you again for your time, energy, and effort. It is our intention, deep, sincere intention, that whatever we've shared is of benefit to you, so that then you can benefit others. That's the only reason we're here. We're not getting paid for this, by the way. So you know. All right. Peace. Until next time. Much love to you.
Bye, guys. See you later. Bye.